we can move into the Olympics. Yeah. I know I'm like long-winded.
No,
sometimes.
I love all this stuff, and I know that people are going to love hearing this stuff too. And you're giving them stuff to read. When you speak of before the Olympics, though, when you speak of like someone like Jung, do you recommend people start somewhere with him? They hear that name a lot, and I feel like we don't talk about what books to read.
Yeah, so he was a Gnostic, right? So he had, but his ideas, his philosophies, and such were instrumental in psychoanalysis and like therapy, right? And he said a lot of stuff that was interesting. And I don't, he wrote a lot of books, but the one that I read was about flying saucers, and he thought that the mandala was a symbol of the flying saucer. But he was also into this idea. He said, "I'd rather be whole than good," and what he's talking about is the reconciliation of opposing forces, like we talked about earlier. And this is one of the main philosophies of these occult elite Illuminati folks, is that they embrace a concept called antinomianism, and that it'll explain a lot as to why we're seeing this sort of unbridled debauchery kind of everywhere we look. If you read, I'll refer people to Dr. Stephen Flowers wrote a book called Lords of the Left-Hand Path, and it talks about Aleister Crowley and Satanism and the Brotherhood of Saturn and all these groups that are, pretty dark. And they're all kind of occult, ritual, magic type groups. And one of the main concepts he keeps reiterating is this idea that they subscribe to antinomianism, which is this embracing of anything that's against the social construct or the social norm. So from here, it gets a bit more subjective, right? You could argue that gender bending is part of that. Now, I myself, on a personal level, try not to go into those territories, because I do think that you get into sort of political and religious ideologies that people use these theories to say, oh, yeah, see, that's why we need to make drag queens go to prison. And that's not me. I go to Rocky Horror Picture Show every year. I've got LGBT members in my family I love dearly. I honestly try to stand up for equal rights for everyone, to, like, as long as you're not hurting kids, like, I don't care. And that's, again, this starts getting into political stuff. Well, they're hurting kids, or they're teaching them all this nasty debauchery. Whatever, man. I'm not a parent. Like, I'll let those people battle that kind of stuff out. But the idea is antinomianism is to go against the social construct, which just so happens to be based upon a lot of religious sort of thoughts, right? But in America, when you talk about the founding of America, and to take this into the Olympics with France, a lot of the thoughts behind creating these nations comes from rationality and Enlightenment principles. And a lot of the founding fathers, they were deists, and this is basically a school of thought that was kind of Christian, but it was also heavy on science and rationality. Like Thomas Paine, he wrote a book called The Age of Reason, and said Christianity was a fable. And anyways, there's a lot of tie-ins to the idea that, well, maybe the founding fathers weren't really pro-Christian, and maybe they were more pro-Luciferian New World Order government. And this, like Ben Franklin, for instance, he was a member of the Hellfire Club that Francis Dashwood was operating, and they would do satanic, blasphemous orgies in these caves underneath churches. But anyways, so the idea is that, because Rosicrucians, they came to America early on because they were trying to get away from the oppression of the church and the royal monarchy, right? So when you look at the creation of America, that you can't separate that there were a lot of occult forces who subscribed to these doctrines. And if you read Manly P. Hall's The Secret Destiny of America, or Francis Bacon's The New Atlantis, you can see what they had in store. They wanted a place that was tolerant of all religions, we'll say, right? And Manly P. Hall, being, of course, a prominent Freemason, thought that, well, what we should strive towards, using these ideas of the Enlightenment, is ideas of a technocracy and science as this sort of the new dictator, right? And And why is that? Well, it goes back again. I stand on the shoulders of giants like Michael Hoffman in his book. He talks about like the whole purpose is to separate man from nature, right? And that's why when we saw that the 33rd Olympics were happening there in France, I didn't think that was a coincidence. I was like, well, surely they planned that out.
Can you explain real quick for those who don't know why 33 is significant?
Yeah, in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, there's 33 degrees, right? And the 33rd degree is the highest, and it's an invitation only thing. In fact, I was talking to a guy that was a Freemason just the other day, and he was explaining to me, you can go through the first 32 degrees as fast as you want. Some people can get through them in 6 months. They just give you books and lessons, and the sooner you can go through the ritual and sort of pass, they'll move you up. But 33 is important. 33 is invitation only, and this is where you get into the ideas of the invisible groups, the deep state, the shell within the shell, all this stuff. And in terms of why there's 33, some people will tell you that, and this is all secret society stuff, I certainly don't know, but 33 is a play and the mockery on the life of Christ, who ascended. They believe he ascended master at the age of 33 when he died on the cross and was resurrected.
It's an interesting coincidence that they use that number.
Yeah, and that it was in France, which
a godless country, you might say.
I've never been there. I'm not an expert on France.
Just saying, they've had some revolutions and they've cut off a lot of heads. But when I was watching, I'm like, okay, they're obviously referencing things that may or may not be apocalyptic. People were saying that's the pale horse. I was like, well, I don't know if that's the same color, because I believe the pale horse was kind of greenish, maybe not so much white, right? There's a white horse of the four horsemen. The pale horse isn't white, but people were seeing things and they were like, this is apocalyptic. They were seeing what they thought was a mockery of the Last Supper, which, I mean, it did look like that. But when you saw, for instance, let's start with the Last Supper imagery, what did you see?
Well, when you watch it, I watched it in its entirety, like the full sort of 3-hour ordeal on one of the streamers, right? Which I thought was interesting because I've been covering these events since 2011, and almost every time you can find a copy of it on YouTube for a period of time. And this one, good luck. It was
interesting.
I couldn't find it. I had to actually, and anyways, yeah, I don't want to get into it, but yeah, you had to have it on the streamer. So YouTube, of course, which is, I have a love-hate relationship with them.
Same.
They, they're careful, we'll say.
Yep.
And when I watched it, I didn't realize, because I saw the imagery online. I was actually busy that sort of when it happened. I was doing some stuff, some summer things, and I saw the imagery people were sharing on Twitter, and I was like, oh, that looks like the Last Supper table. Yeah, I could see that. This is a sort of mockery on the Last Supper. And when I watched it, I didn't realize that it was actually a runway, and it was a sort of a play on a fashion show idea, which, fine, whatever, right? But the idea that of the most important element of this, I thought, was this woman at the center who had, which, if you go with the Last Supper sort of theory, that from what I understand, the creator of the event said it was, and then said it wasn't, based on the Last Supper. The woman at the center had the crown with the halo on it, which this goes back to sun worship. This is like the original. Again, this is what I've learned. Bill Cooper has a 30-hour thing called Mystery Babylon you can find online, and he walks through the whole thing. And it's basically these elite occultists, they believe in this solar religion, which, like I was saying, plot spoiler, it's a reference to the Luciferian religion, because they can't, Satan's got a bad rep and they can't quite say that what they're worshiping is the idea. And so she's got this halo on it, referencing the sun worship or the goddess Semiramis. We also saw, speaking of Beyonce, we saw her with the halo when she performed at, I think it was the Grammys. She was performing as a Yoruba goddess, an African goddess years ago. And in the diaspora of, from what I understand of the Yoruba religion, it was actually kind of like tied into voodoo and stuff like this. but the idea is that when you research it, you look it up, and because I thought, okay, maybe it's the Last Supper. Some people were saying it's the Symposium of the Gods painting, which I had to look up. You know, I'm not a very cultured guy, but
Come on.
it looked more like the Symposium of the Gods, which made more sense to me, according to the solar religion idea, because Apollo, with the rays of the sun, is at the center where this woman was standing, and they also had the Dionysus guy, the blue guy, right? At this table in the painting as well. So I kind of thought it makes more sense to me that this is a reference to the solar religion, especially because of all the other ideas, which we don't have time to go into. But, you know, like I said, France is where the supposed priory of the Scion, which is, again, another solar religious secret society, allegedly.